I see what ho, chaps and chapettes, Game Chap and Bertie here.
Yes.
Yes, indeed, fellows, and I dare say we are now bringing you some rather exciting Minecraft news. It's been a while, old chap, but we now have here some interesting news about the next update for Minecraft, and we are talking here 1.9, you know.
We most certainly are, yes indeed. And it seems from what we can see here that this will all be about combat.
Right, it's actually being called the Combat Update, is it not?
Well, that's what they're referring to it as at the moment.
Yes.
But it seems it's not just combat we're talking about, but possibly a change in the way that combat has been done.
Right, so basically they're changing the whole combat system and the way things work again, old chap. This time, perhaps to, shall we say, bring it in line with the modern and recent wishes of the players, I think.
Well, yes, indeed. And also, let's remember now that Microsoft have got this whole thing in their hand now.
Right.
So presumably, the devs won't just be doing what they think is a good idea now. They're going to be following the guidance, or at least having talked to Microsoft. So Microsoft obviously have said, or perhaps have agreed, yes, let's do something with the combat here.
Right, so what changes here are we looking at, old boy?
Well, first of all, let's look, for example, at mobs, and particular skeletons.
Skeletons?
The old skeleton, yes indeed. Now, as we know, the skeleton sort of walks around now and he sort of holds his bow up. And
right.
You know when he's firing at you because it jolly well hurts.
It hurts a lot, that's right. He walks around sort of like a zombie, you know, pretending to be a zombie, but actually he's not a zombie, you'll see. He's a skeleton.
Yes,
However,
he's a very cautious one because he's always got his bow and arrow up there.
His trigger discipline's terrible, old chap, I have to
Yes.
say. But anyway, it seems, fellows, they're going to fix the unruly trigger discipline of the skeleton by means of giving him some kind of animation for his bow.
Most certainly, yes indeed. Now, I think we've got something cooking along here somewhere that shows this, but it seems that the skeleton will walk along and with his bow down,
Right.
and then when you are in his range or he gets upset with you or something, he'll bring his bow up.
So it seems very much to me as if the bow doesn't sort of, he doesn't bring the bow up, as it were, in a smooth animation, it sort of jerks up to his face, as it were.
Yes, I suppose he's got to be quick.
Well, I suppose so.
I think they're going to perhaps work on him pulling the strings back as well.
Really? I see.
I
Okay,
think
so he's going to hold the bow in his hands rather like Steve does, perhaps in the third-person view, or perhaps when you see other players firing the bow.
Yes, indeed. So perhaps making it look a little bit better, a little bit more realistic than him just going around holding his bow. Now, we
Right.
don't know whether he's planned things for the other mobs as yet, improving those, but certainly the skeletons are going to get that.
Right, and last time, of course, we discussed there will be new types of arrows and different various effects you can inflict upon your opponents with your arrows, and also a new use for the quiver, which will apparently store these different arrow types, in case you forgot that piece of news from last time.
Oh, yes,
Now,
yes, and just talking about arrows there, apparently there's going to be something called a spectral arrow.
really?
Well, yes, but apparently it doesn't really do damage as such. It's something to do with combat utility or something.
Ah, so basically it seems to me here as if some of these arrows we've been discussing just now are actually more suited towards, shall we say, utility rather than actually hurting things. This is quite interesting, of course, because usually you'd expect arrows to do damage to your enemies, but actually it seems to me as if, I'm not entirely sure, but I'm guessing the spectral arrow may be along the lines of the ender pearl, perhaps, old chap.
Well, that's a good idea. Something you fire and then you sort of travel where the arrow goes.
Yes, I mean spectral, that's got something to do with light, hasn't it, old boy? I'm not entirely sure.
Spectral, interesting.
But,
Light arrows, like Link.
Zelda's light arrows, Link and Zelda's light arrows, perhaps, who knows, but it seems to me, Vanille, indeed, as if the new arrows to be introduced into Steve's quiver won't all be for taking down your foes. Some might be, as I suggested there, perhaps a teleportation or interesting different battle functions.
Well, yes, very interesting indeed. I mean, we know we can enchant bows. Of course, we can't enchant arrows until they have the effect, as it were.
Yes.
But of course, with these ones here, we're having different type of arrows. It seems they want to certainly ramp up what's going on with the bows in this combat update.
Well, actually, you say you can't enchant arrows, but if you ask me, having different types of arrows, like poison, fire, you know, ice and different types of arrows, that is, in a way, a bit like enchanted arrows. So, I mean, perhaps they're looking to fill the void of arrow enchantments by saying, right now you can have up to, you know, I don't know how many X amount different types of arrows, place those in your quiver and take them out for use on the battlefield. A very clever idea, old chap.
Well, it is, yes, indeed. I mean, we've got the quiver there, as you say, the arrows improvements, the new different arrows, animations of the bow improved, all this sort of thing.
Yes, we are certainly seeing a very big update focused, as I say, very much on the combat side of things, hence the name, the Combat Update. Going to be very exciting, I'm sure,
Oh,
chap.
it certainly is fighting. I mean, Mining Steve seems to be coming now. Fighting Steve.
He always has mind and thought, though, old boy. He mines, he fights, but is there anything he can't do, old chap?
Well, I don't know, I never really thought about that.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Also, it seems there's quite a a large new feature coming in the combat update, being that, well, you see, players will be able to kind of dual wield, sort of,
Well, most
kind
certainly.
of, you know.
Well, yes, indeed. Now, this is a big thing, and
It's
I'm sure
big.
all the Chaps and Chapettes listeners out there and Minecraft lovers, etc., will be very interested in that because we are talking dual wielding, sort of.
Yes,
It's a sort of.
it's dual wielding asterisk, old chap.
Well, yes, in other words, it looks like now Steve, or whoever you may be, can hold things in his left hand, as you look at him.
My word, has Steve finally figured out how to use his left hand, old chap?
Well, exactly, or in
Goodness
t'other
me.
hand, yes, indeed.
T'other hand, that's right.
Yes,
now,
indeed.
it seems to me, Vales, as not only can you use the left hand, or Steve's left hand, or Alex's left hand, you can also change which hand is your dominant hand. So if you're left-handed in real life, you can be left-handed in Minecraft too.
Ah, now that's rather interesting. So apparently how this works is if you've got, say, a pickaxe in your normal hand, in your
Yes,
normal
yes.
right hand, as it were, and I don't know, a flower pot or something in the left hand, and there's nothing for the pickaxe to do, it's just sitting, there's nothing to mine, it's just sitting there, and you right-click, it'll place the flower pot.
Right, okay, so basically, if your right-hand item or weapon doesn't have a right-click use, like a pickaxe doesn't, for example, then you will place down the flower pot instead of using the item in the right hand. So that's basically how the dual wielding is going to work, but it's to my understanding that you won't actually be able to have two swords at once and swing them both at once, will you?
Apparently no. Unfortunately, you won't be able to do this. You won't be able to swing or actually do what is really dual wielding, unfortunately.
Right,
But
so it's
there's a
very
but to
much
that.
it's dual wielding asterisk very much then. But of course you will be able to hold two swords at once for the sort of double-bladed lightsaber sort of look, or the double lightsabers kind of look if you're into that sort of thing. But actually you won't be able to strike with both at the same time, and therefore the concept of double damage is sadly out of the question.
Most certainly this is the case, but however, apparently this shouldn't be so much of a problem in that they're saying the way things have been going for combat, etc., is going to change. This is a suggestion that they're trying to put across.
Really?
So I don't know whether that means perhaps you can belt with a flower pot. I don't know. On the other hand, I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I think, as you said earlier there, perhaps if the item in the right hand, just to recap, it doesn't have an option to use a right-click function, then that's when you'll use the item in the left hand with your right-click. Whereas if, for example, you were holding a sword in your right hand, I think you'd block with the sword rather than putting down the item. But of course, it remains to be seen just exactly how this is going to work.
Well, of course, we don't know that yet. And of course, does this mean that we'll see other things, perhaps just such as shields in the left hand?
Well, I don't know. That's a very good point. Perhaps indeed shields could be on the table for the future. Also, I do understand that bows are going to require the use of two hands now. In other words, of course, as you would in real life, Steve will have to use both his hands to fire the bow.
Yes, indeed. There seems to be upgrades all across the board when it comes to actual combat and combat systems, etc., the way it works.
That's right, and to my understanding, you'll only be able to actually attack enemies, as we suggested earlier, with the main hand, which is normally, of course, your right hand. And what's more, you can change items between the two hands by pressing the F key, so some interesting details there.
Well, yes, it most certainly is. But the thing is, though, does this mean that they're going to change everything about combat? They're actually the way perhaps you hit or strike a mob. Will this be changed or differ? Or will this remain the same?
Well, I don't know if you're talking about damage changes. Perhaps indeed it's quite possible we could see those, although I think that from what I can tell here, the team are mainly focusing on things like, adding arrows to the quiver, changing the system so it's now a sort of semi-dual wielding mechanic, perhaps, as you said, the option to use shields, hypothetically, at some point in the future, also to become compatible with these new changes to the way weapons are held. It seems to me as if armor stands are going to have the option to dual wield themselves, as it were. In other words, you can have an armor stand which shows a sword's held in both hands too.
Aha! So you can sort of go to your armor stand and perhaps pick it up in both hands.
Well, yes,
Maybe.
but again, of course, you won't actually be able to use the sword that's in your offhand, sadly, but perhaps something for the future, old chap.
Well, that's a bit of a shame, isn't it? You can't use
Yes.
the sword in the other hand.
It's a bit of a shame. We have actually seen mods, of course, that allow you to have this functionality, dual wielding, and actually doing extra damage by attacking with both weapons at the same time, but perhaps because the Mojang team want to allow people to be able to still use blocks and things whilst they have a sword in their hand, they want to let people place blocks and such like, they've discouraged and in fact denied players actually the opportunity to use dual wielding, sadly, in this update, it seems.
Well, yes, indeed. I mean, I suppose you can hit things with a pickaxe. I don't know whether you'd perhaps be able to have a pickaxe in the left hand and hack something with that and hit it with a sword.
I don't think so.
Maybe not.
But it's interesting, though, all the same, to explore this new possibility, and no doubt it'll be very fun when it does come out, old chap.
Well, no doubt it will be, yes indeed, and as we said earlier there, Microsoft must in some way or the other be backing this and saying it's okay. And who knows what may be in the pipeline, on the back of this new combat change.
Yes, also bear in mind, fellows, there's actually a brand new dungeon on the way courtesy of Mr. Jeb, and we can safely assume that will also appear in the 1.9 update too.
Most certainly, yes indeed. That is going to be a rather interesting update, I think, no doubt about that.
For sure, fellows, and indeed I dare say Game Chap and Bertie here shall bring you the news as and when it becomes available, you know.
Oh, we'll be there.
Until then, fellows, this has been Game Chap and Bertie, and thank you most kindly for joining us in this Minecraft news update of sorts, and we look forward to seeing you once more on the next exciting audio, I say.
Oh, we do.
Until then.
Wait! The gerbils!